Yeah, so I'm interested in, I've studied Christian ethics for a while, and my initial interest was healthcare ethics. So questions of bioethics, whether that's the use of new genetic technologies, euthanasia, etc. And the more I delved into these issues, the more it became clear to me that like a lot of the work, a lot of the talking points that we see in Christian circles are often a bit superficial, not necessarily like sort of carefully thought through. And that's the case for all kind of political discourse and a lot of moral discourse. But it often leaves these arguments kind of weak or underdeveloped. Like they're not really connecting with, they're not really accurately describing what's happening or thinking through how people actually make decisions or what motivates their action. And so that, with the influence of my supervisor, that's what drew me into learning more about, in Catholic circles, it's called fundamental moral theology. So that deals with concepts of actions and virtues and intentions and other questions like that. And the recent work on that has been heavily influenced by, in particular, Elizabeth Anscombe. So my supervisor, again, having an interest in her, and I realizing that, even some major Christian thinkers like Hauerwas or MacIntyre weren't always reliably going to the depth that I was interested in, led me into studying these figures and more actual kind of contemporary moral philosophy rather than moral theology or Christian ethics. And it's through that kind of, I don't want to say rigorous, because it sounds like when philosophers talk about rigorous thinking, it sounds like they're accusing everyone else of being sloppy. It's more like the a refusal to move on too quickly from the fundamental questions that I find really engaging. So Anscombe was motivated by very practical concerns like the World War II, the use of nuclear weapons, euthanasia, etc. But thanks to her philosophical mentorship by Wittgenstein and her friendship with the other figures, she really dug deep to try and get like, what are the fundamental questions that are being animated by these problems? And I think the same is true for the work of the rest of the quartet, right? Because of the opportunity they had to study together at Oxford and the influences that were there, they were not content with some of the well-established, sometimes superficial positions in Great Britain during the time. So they ended up leading a sort of counter-revolution against the dominant strain of analytic philosophy at the time, which was kind of logical positivism, and returning again to like ethical questions and metaphysical questions, things that had been sort of neglected or dismissed by many of the positivists. And when they did it this time, they had a whole tradition of thought, of course, going back to Plato and Aristotle and other primary sources they were working on, but also Wittgenstein's example of really paying attention to language, right? And what do we mean, or what do we say when we use these words? And I think that's what led them to like recover or refurbish a lot of concepts and ideas that had lain dormant for a long time, and then gave them their concern to do that, their willingness to dig deep and dig up old treasures, so to speak, meant that they could make truly original contributions to the contemporary philosophical landscape. They had no kind of, maybe because of their background and because they're all women, they had no feeling that they had to be beholden to the philosophical consensus of the time, right? That they had to like toe the party line to get published and get tenure, etc. They just wanted to find out what was true and what was right and talk about that. And I think that's what makes their work really original and timeless and important, including to this day.